I'm doing the elections.
Okay, but what's his name again?
His name is Howard Fletcher.
Oh, no, that's the way to go.
I'll call the order. I'm going to call the meeting to order now, please. And to start, we're going to have elections for the chair and the vice chair. So I will open up the table to ask if anyone would like to put their name forward as the chair. I know I have I have put Doug if nobody else. Yes. He's agreed to maintain his chair status if nobody else is interested. All right. So nobody else is interested. Okay. So now I will ask for calls for the vice chair position if anybody would like to put their name forward. And seeing no one, Howard Fletcher has agreed to stay on as the vice chair, and I guess we'll just keep him. So then I have to ask for a volunteer to run today's meeting because both the chair and the vice chair are missing. I have an agenda here for you, anyone who is willing to do that.
We'll figure it out, whatever.
See what happens, you know, come to a meeting, you phone it back in your position.
All right, I'll just follow your little agenda. Okay, do we have to vote on the chair then? No, we're good? Okay. Okay, we'll take a moment of reflection. And we'll move to the disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. I do have a question for people that are just tuning in. Do people need to say at every meeting or that those that have those interests? Okay. Okay. All right. Public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with Kirsten, project administrator, pump storage project, before this agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with Kirsten by 4 p.m. on March 12th by contacting pumpstorage@meaford.ca. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. So presentations are none. And deputations on the agenda, it doesn't say any of those either, I guess, no. And approval of the minutes. Bob? A second, okay.
No, we're approving the minutes of the last meeting. They're incorrect.
Okay,
It states here that, Kim Buckham was here and she wasn't.
oh, okay.
No, she was gone at the last. Wasn't she? Wasn't she? Oh, okay. Okay, so sorry, I stand corrected. No. Sorry about that.
Okay. And on note and comments of the meeting minutes, are we able to actually document our meetings instead of it having super general, like if we propose questions and comments that they actually be noted in the minutes instead of just having a very vague minutes? Is that something that we can start using going forward?
Thank you, Chair Alice. If you're looking at me, my suggestion would be that if there's any discussion on the minutes that we are approving today, that discussion then would then be contained in the minutes from today.
Okay,
And then that could be addressed at an upcoming meeting if there was any concern about the discussion. Would I be correct in that, Sarah?
Thank you through the chair.
okay.
Yes, I do believe so. We can, and if we have to adjust, we can adjust as we go along. I'm not the best one to be able to give this information because I just don't have that complete knowledge.
Okay.
But there we go. Sue, take it away.
So minutes are not a description of you don't get into the details of every conversation. So I'm not sure, what do you think is missing from them?
I just think when people raise questions or there's follow-up items that they be noted so that we can address them on the next meeting, because right now they're just kind of moved on and nothing, we don't go back to any open items. So maybe being able to go back on issues that were, questions that were raised in other meetings or that sort of thing. Yep. And
I think if we have something that we need to discuss at a future meeting, we table that item and that will get added into the next minutes. The meetings are also all recorded, so
And-
I do tend to, like, I missed the last one, so I reviewed it a couple times before I came here.
okay,
Um,
all right, just a
I just-
suggestion. So,
Also,
okay.
I just want to point out too, that that's what the agenda review meetings are for. So when you add items that you'd like for future, for agendas, you need to speak with the chair and make sure he adds that to the future agenda meetings.
Okay,
All right, so it's noted in the minutes, but it's not followed up on at the meeting. It's followed up at the agenda setting
Okay.
meetings. Okay.
all right, let's move on to items of information. So we've got the CANCIA presentation virtual. Are we moving to that? Yeah, okay. So can you, is he gonna speak? Is he a voice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, we hear you.
All right, excellent. Oh, and I can see you all again once more too. But, yeah, so thank you very much for inviting us, or inviting me to present on the summary of the CANCIA report. I am just getting over a bit of a cough and a cold, so if I go on mute occasionally, it's probably just a bit of a I need to catch my breath for a second. Now I can't see the slide. Can everyone see the slides deck?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. There we go. Oh. So, okay, so I guess I just sort of shout out when to change slides and everything. And I can't see the deck, so I'm just going to remind people. So on slide 2, just a little bit of an outline of what I'll cover today. First, a little bit about CANCIA, just a little bit about who we are, what we do, and the type of analysis that we perform. I'll follow that with just a bit of background of the project, and then just get into the key results, where I focus on some of the high-level results that are coming out of the analysis that we did. And then I believe there is some time allotted for a short Q&A at the end, where I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. So on slide 3 now, just a little bit about CANCIA. We've been around since 2002. We are an independent socioeconomic analysis and data organization we perform a type of modeling that's called agent-based modeling. It's not meant to scare you or anything like that in terms of what the name is. All that really means is that we go down and look at the individual people in the model. From the high level, we're consistent with Stats Canada data, the traditional input-output modeling that's performed at that level. But we're actually able to trace the effects in the economy down to individuals and geospatially and geographically across the country. Over the past 15 years or so. We've done projects with hundreds of different organizations, both in largely across Canada, but also internationally. One of the reasons for our overall success is that our research is independent. Clients do come to us with questions, but then we provide quantitative, unbiased analysis of those results. We never accept any types of projects where there's a predetermined outcome. So if there's a study that says we want to show we're twice as good as someone else, we don't take that work, but we're happy to actually quantify, well, what is the benefits of different policies, investments, and so on. On the next slide, just a little summary and overview of some of our clients that we've dealt with over the past few years. We do a lot of work for different government organizations and ministries, all the way from the federal down to the municipal levels. We also do a lot of work for not-for-profits, whether it's on social housing, basic income, but also, obviously, as we're here today on this type of project, do works with infrastructure and capital investments and analyzing those impacts as they propagate through the economy. So on slide 5 now, just a little bit of background. I'm sure everyone's all familiar with this. But basically, the energy economy is changing as we're transitioning away from carbon emission to lower emission sources. And the mix of energy supply and storage capacities are changing in the coming future. From the IESO, they estimate that the demand for electricity is set to increase by about 75% over the next 25 years. The OPS project, Ontario Pumped Storage, it's led by TC Energy, along with potential partners, is looking at building a 1,000 megawatt hydroelectric facility in the Meaford area. And what this analysis is, on the next slide, objectives of the analysis, is to really look at, well, what is the overall value proposition of pumped storage, looking at the economic and labor force effects, as well as the social value or the individual level benefits of the project. We were also asked to compare how that would look to a battery energy storage system, which has quite a different impact on the province. One of the things that we weren't asked to look at in this analysis is to consider other types of storage systems. Though if there are any proposals there that want to be evaluated, we're always happy to take a look at those types of projects as well, since we are independent and able to do whatever analysis that we want. On slide 7, when it comes to looking at the value proposition of any investment or policy, there really are 2 aspects to it. And this is one of the things that by looking at and modeling individuals, we're actually able to get at both sides of this coin. One is the traditional economic impact. So how many jobs are supported? What is the GDP number? What is the tax revenue associated with it? But that's really only half the picture. The other half that really should be considered is the social value. How is it impacting the well-being of the population? And it's really that side that determines why you want to do a project or the motivation for it. While the economic side, is it financially viable, is really about how do you pay for the project and what are its other economic benefits. So in this, the analysis of the OPS, we are looking at the total net benefit. So looking at the net economics and the social value side of things. The report itself goes into the nuances and some details about how those are calculated. But I will just sort of jump to some of the key results on the next slide. So slide 8. And basically, so what we do in the analysis is that we take the investment schedule, the build-out schedule for OPS, and run that through the platform and look at how that economic activity that's supported by the construction and operation of the pumped storage propagates through the economy. one of the first things that comes out of that is, one of the high level numbers that comes out of that is that when we actually sum up all the economic activity, so that's from the construction, we actually trace that through the supply chain. So if there's a company that's building something with concrete, they need equipment, they buy that equipment from another company. That company that's manufactured the equipment has their own suppliers. So we actually trace that through the economy and capture all those effects along the way. When we roll that up and look at the total across that arises in Canada from OPS, it amounts to about $6.8 billion overall, and that's over a 50-year time frame that we're looking at. So that's not all in 1 year, that's over the whole course of the project. And one of the other things to keep in mind is that since this is a large capital investment where there's a lot of construction activity and then a longer term operation, all of the activity isn't necessarily spread uniformly over those 50 years. As in the first sort of bullet point there says, during the peak of the construction phase, there'd be over 1,700 construction jobs active each of those years, either directly or indirectly, largely in the Grey Bruce area and that part of your area of the province. In total, over the course of the 50-year period we're looking at, it would be the equivalent of about 41,000 years of employment over that period. One of the interesting things about the OPS project is that the bulk of the investment that's made at the time of the analysis, at the time this analysis was completed, it was about a $5.8 billion estimate. About over 80%, 83% of that investment actually stays within Canada. So that means it's supporting other businesses and the economy within Canada and particularly in Ontario. The other 17% that actually goes outside of the province through other imports and supports outside of the province rather than in Ontario and Canada. One of the things that we're able to do with the type of analysis that we do is look at where different economic activity occurs. So we're able to look at whether it's in an urban center, rural center, close to the construction site, farther away. And one of the things that comes out of this analysis is over 60% of the employment and GDP benefits actually arise in more rural areas of the province, so that it's not a activity it's supporting downtown Toronto. It is actually having benefits continuing to expand outside of the main urban centers. And one of the other things that is always interesting, particularly when this was the analysis was done last year, is the skill shortages and the effect on the requirement of immigrants and their support of the project as well, or the support in the labor force as well. And about 35% of the benefits could be supporting a lot of immigrants and attracting new skills into the province as well. And this, we do quite a bit of work in with other construction sectors as well. And the labor force challenges is one of the things that's faced quite commonly across different sectors. On slide 9, there's a couple of maps here. And as I said, we can actually trace through where different economic activity and what type of economic activity is happening in different parts of the province. All of this data is basically derived and it's consistent with Statistics Canada. We use data sources like the Business Registry, census data to really understand where different activity occurs. And we've just pulled out excuse me. We pulled out 4 different industry sectors here. There are many more that are connected to this as well, but some of the key ones, construction in the top right there. The economic activity is not surprisingly associated with Grey and particularly around the Meaford area. Other areas are a bit more surprising. Things like manufacturing and a lot of the professional and design services. They actually have a lot of economic benefits that occur in the Waterloo area. And for those that have driven along the 401 through there, you can sort of see how that makes sense with a lot of the large factories and manufacturing in that region. On the other hand, things like financial services and insurance, their benefits there are focused in the Toronto area where all the big financial institutions are. So all of the economic activity isn't located directly around the region of construction, but it does propagate across the province, across different industries and sectors. On slide 10 now, on the next slide, we move away from the economic aspect and start looking at a little bit more about, well, how is it actually affecting the people in the province? Since we are modeling and tracing individual people and their activities as they go to work, for example, we are actually able to see how many people, what type of households they're likely to be in, where they tend to reside in the province, to see where economic benefits and where benefits would be arising. And one of the things that sort of comes out of this analysis is that of the about 37,000 households or so that are affected by this, so they have an employee, a family member that works for them, for example, or in the supply chain, more than half of them are actually in more rural regions. A lot of the jobs that are supported, about a third of them are likely to be filled by people of younger age groups below 35, and also with a lot of fairly skilled technical jobs as well that have generally a little bit higher incomes than average. And that's one of the areas that also, one of the population groups, sorry, that is also facing a lot of housing affordability pressures. So we're also able to understand that this might reduce some of the affordability pressures on some of those groups as well. When we actually quantify the well-being impact, so we're actually able to look at how the well-being of people are changing through higher employment opportunities, better wages, for example. That social value equivalent is about $450 million as well. So that's a very significant social value aspect, positive social value impact that this type of economic investment would have in Ontario. Yeah, and just a few of the other points there, as I mentioned already, compared to the status quo, where we basically support the same number of jobs as we do in the OPS scenario, but just reflecting the general economy. There's more economic activity kept in the province. There's more benefits to rural economies. And it actually has a better impact on affordability as well. Finally, one of the things that we did look at in the report is how this compares, how OPS would compare to a battery electric storage system. Now, one of the things that we had to do is reduce the time frame that we looked at, so we're only looking at over the next 20 years. Since that's roughly the estimated lifespan of a battery system at the moment, and actually did the same analysis for that system, compared it to the pump storage. And one of the big factors that drives these differences, so that OPS has a GDP contribution that's 2.5 times larger, is the fact that when you start looking at the supply chains, where different parts of these systems come from, the battery storage rely a lot more on imports. So the money that's being spent for the battery storage system is actually leaving the country elsewhere. And this was before all the ethic challenges at the moment with imports and exports and everything.
You want the next slide changed?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Slide 11. My apologies.
Oh, sorry, how long is this presentation?
Just one more slide.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, on slide 11, just a comparison to the battery electric system. As I mentioned, largely due to the different supply chains, OPS generates a lot more social value and local economic benefits compared to the battery storage system. And then finally, on slide 12, when we talk about the economic contribution, that's really the sort of, if you have consider the economy a pie, it's how big is the slice in that pie. When we actually want to look at the net value of OPS versus just the general economy, for example, we want to see how much bigger that whole pie would be. And so what we're actually able to do in the analysis is say, well, if we're able to support the same number of jobs as OPS, but just reflect the general economy, in that case, the economic contribution amounts to about 3.9 billion. So OPS generates significantly more economic contribution, a significantly larger economic contribution than a similar support in the general economy. So when we look at the net benefit above that and combine it with the social value, which is the benefit to the well-being of the population, the overall net benefit amounts to about $3.4 billion. There are a bunch more slides that have some details about industry's employment. I'm not going to go through those, but if there's any questions, those are there if we want to take a closer look. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, did we want to move on to questions, or did we want to do Save Georgian Bay's presentation? What was our plan for the next? What's that?
You would usually ask for questions for every presentation.
Okay, I just didn't see it on here. So, all right, does anybody have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Bob. Oh, maybe your microphone.
So can the person hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So our job as the Pump Storage Advisory Committee is to try to get Meaford ready for this project, if and when it's built. And you have many numbers on this, 41,000 jobs, and then that's over 50 years. So break it down in 50 years, it's 803 jobs per year. I wonder if you can tell me in your analysis that you did, how many jobs will actually be in Meaford when this project is finished? This would be our job, which is to see how the impact will be on the municipality. That means if it's going to be 803 jobs a year, do we have to have housing, sewage, water, medical facilities, schools for 803 people? Is that correct? Maybe you could explain that to me. In layman's terms, please.
Yes, of course. So there's a couple of things just to keep in mind there is, yes, absolutely correct. That's an average over that period. But even over that period, it's not necessarily uniform across the entire time frame. When there's the construction activity occurring, there'll be more jobs in the region, or more economic activity in the region at that time. I think one of the slides there, if I recall, is about 1,700 construction workers on the site during the main period of construction, for example. When it comes to Meaford specifically, it's very difficult to say exactly where different people will be coming from, for example. We do know where the skill base is at the moment in the region. And for example, where a lot of construction skilled trades are, where engineers might be, excuse me. But when it actually comes to how many people will be living exactly in Meaford, or how many jobs or office spaces might be directly in Meaford, that's a bit more in terms of the specific design activities or location of different office spaces, which was outside of what we looked at the moment. We looked at the higher level regional benefits, for example, in Gray overall, but in Meaford itself, we aren't able to get down to specifically there. The other thing to keep in mind as well is that those aren't all necessarily, well, there may be existing skills in the region that are being able to be used and leveraged for this construction project as well. Does that help?
Well, it does help in explaining that. It really, the material that you have here really doesn't help us in our job, which is to get Meaford ready for this project, because it seems that you only deal in high levels, and we're at a lower level here, which is actually dealing with what will happen when the construction takes place. And of course, I understand there's going to be more people here when you build something when you don't. If you build a house, you're going to have more guys around than when you don't. But my concern was what's going to be left over at the end of the day. And it doesn't appear this is something that this report covers. Am I correct in that?
Yes, we don't, in this analysis, we're not able to look at specifically Meaford itself in terms of what housing might be required, for example, for that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
I do have a question for you. When you're looking at your net value of Ontario Pumped Storage, the last page of your presentation, did you take into effect, into your calculation, the tax dollars that are coming, I guess, the taxpayers that are putting in money for this project? Is that factored into your calculation? If it's their money being used, is there truly a benefit when it's being used and then spent?
We didn't look at the specific source of funding in this analysis. Yeah, so that, yes, we didn't look at exactly where the funding's coming from for this in this case.
So it wasn't looked at where the dollars came from. It was just in general. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Harley?
Thanks, Lady Chair. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Very informative, there's no doubt about it. Any project that comes in around $6 billion has got to create employment. I think that's a given. On page 14 of your presentation, you talked about 17,600 jobs, primarily in the construction and manufacturing areas. I'm really puzzled about the construction numbers. When the construction project is presented to a contractor, the contractor needs to know a lot of information about that proposed project. He or she has to have data. They have to have specifics. And I'm really curious how CanSIA got those numbers for the construction part, especially. We'll just concentrate on the construction. To get that information to do a construction job, you need plans. You need information. Did you have that? Did you have that from TC? Because if you did, I'd sure like to be privy to those plans. I think this committee would, this municipality would. I know our council would like to see those plans. How can you estimate this many jobs without having plans? Or did you have plans? Can you give me an answer to that?
Yes, thanks. It's an excellent question. In the report, I forget which slide is on, but we do have the overall construction schedule that's expected from, I believe, I forget the exact years at the moment. Yeah, from basically 2025 up through 2032 with the overall capital expenditures. What we do know is that for the typical type of construction that is involved with a pump storage, roughly what the different categories are of investments in construction that is required, whether it's machinery, whether it's concrete. And then we're actually able to use a lot of excellent Statistics Canada data that basically has done a lot of analysis and a lot of work across different products, different industries about the employment, productivity, already said labor force and employment for those different products that are actually required to go in there. So while we don't have detailed blueprints and plans for that, we do have a good broad understanding of what the input components would be and what the rough labor force is for that. Obviously, as the different plans get finalized, these numbers might shift a little bit if there's less concrete, more electrical engineering, things like that. But when you're looking at such a large investment in particular, these general proportions and industry Statistics Canada data are quite reliable.
Okay, thank you for that. And staying with employment on the second part of your presentation, which you just didn't have time to get into, on page 44 of that second part, there's a chart 24 on page 44. It talks about a breakdown of employees by age, and that's interesting. But to me, the most important part of that graph displayed that non-local workers at this project would be 3 times as many as local workers. And that this is an aspect of this job that has bothered me right from the get-go, and that is the transportation and the traffic that it will create. Now,
yes.
your report was very vague when it came to this type of thing. So I just wanted to make a point that traffic and transportation, especially if it's non-local, even local has to have transportation for most of the workers. So I just wanted to point out that there was, I couldn't find anything in your report concerning that, and to me, that's a factor in this overall presentation. Okay, I will digress.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to clarify one point there. Maybe it just wasn't presented clearly. When we talk about local and non-local, that's not necessarily jobs at the location. For example, a non-local job would be a finance or manufacturing job supported in Waterloo, making parts for the plant. It's not that they are necessarily traveling outside the region into the area. In those figures where we talk about local and non-local, local means the people are actually working in the gray county. Non-local means those people are working elsewhere in the province and not necessarily traveling to the region, but they actually have their place of employment, as I said, like in a manufacturing plant elsewhere, in a bank in downtown Toronto, for example.
Any more questions? Shirley, did you have one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was going to ask for a definition of local, but we've just received that from Mr. Stiff. So I'll just suggest that in my mind, this is kind of a moment in time type of report in 2023 dollars. So, even 2 years later, those numbers will be different. And I hate to even bring up the word, but, do you have any thoughts at all, Mr. Stiff, on how you see tariffs potentially impacting the numbers that you have presented us today? And who knows if we'll still have those in place or not, but they are so vividly in our minds right now that I just have to ask for your thoughts in relation to this report, how they might factor in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's it's on everyone's mind these days, obviously. For this report, since a lot of the activity is within Canada and within the province, there'll be a much smaller impact. It's still, I think, is so tariffs are a risk for everything going on. But since most of the material can be sourced from within the country, there's a lower risk associated with that compared to just using the batteries, for example, that a lot of that has to come internationally, whether it's from the US, whether it's from Asia, all of which are tariff changing daily, which could significantly increase those costs. Again, that's just a opinion at the moment. Basically a roll of the dice, but the tariff's going to look like tomorrow these days. But it definitely has one of those advantages. I think that it is more focused in national.
I have a question. Do you suspect the generators and turbines to be sourced in Canada or outside of Canada?
Some of them would be, I believe. I'd have to actually go back and look in the data sets exactly which pieces are from where. But if I recall, about 83% of the total capital is from within the province. I don't recall offhand which different components are and which ones aren't.
Not aware of any manufacturing facilities in Ontario for those, but okay, thank you. Shirley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just one final thought for any ears that might be listening from TC Energy, and it has been mentioned, but I just want to reaffirm our desire for a report of this nature that's really specific to Meaford so that we understand the impacts and the benefits that are presumed to come our way, because I think this would really help our businesses prepare for the construction phase so that they can have some guidance as to what be needed. They'll need to staff up and stock up and so on. And again, I hope that there will be a report that will really be specific to Meaford at some point.
That'd be good. Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, we'll move on to Save Georgian Bay's presentation with Mike McTaggart. Oh, one more question?
David, don't we have another presentation with you?
No, that was it. But thanks for just giving me the opportunity to say thank you very much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you.
Okay, David, I have the presentation up.
He's done, did he not say?
Oh, did he say he
Yeah.
was done?
He's
Oh, yeah, I only have the one.
Oh, sorry, there's two on the agenda. Oh, okay. All right.
Come on up, Mike. I think so. Oh,
Okay. Okay, yes, that's very good.
go ahead, Mike.
Visually challenged.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, oh, thank you. Just press the button here.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, just forward. Oh, okay, sorry. This one here. Okay, well, thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Keaveney, Councillor Greenfield, and all the PSAC members. Thanks for inviting me here to do this presentation. Anyway, I'm here to do basically a critical analysis of this CANSIA report. And this CANSIA report, of course, was commissioned and funded by, paid for by TC Energy. So, and the TC Energy tasked this CANSIA to make the case for a proposed pump storage project. basically to, glorify this project. And, anyway, this funded research is based on a computer model that allows for user-defined inputs. Which means the inputs can be easily manipulated. Anything can be input to, exaggerate this project's benefits and painting a much rosier picture of it than reality suggests. CanSIA intentionally overwhelms readers with complex numbers and jargon, creating an illusion of credibility. A closer look reveals the truth, though. This project will cost Ontario taxpayers far more than it will return while creating few meaningful jobs. There are less expensive, more efficient, and more environmentally friendly solutions to meet Ontario's energy storage needs. Okay. The CanSIA report is not independent because it's funded research funded by TC Energy. And CanSIA, as Mr. Stiff mentioned, explained, they use an agent-based computational modeling system which relies on design choices and makes a lot of assumptions about behaviors and interactions within the computer program. It would Save George and Bay suggests we should engage a truly independent third party to audit CanSIA's report before actually relying on it as a basis for a decision. So a closer look tells a different story. Oops, there we go. What's happening? Oh, there we go. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, this CanSIA report has a biased view. The report tells a good story and makes the case for their client's proposal. TC Energy is the client, but does not reflect an independent view of the project. It's also a net loss for Ontarians. This CanSIA report used a capital cost of, was it 5.8 billion, but currently the cap is apparently is $7 billion. So the assumptions are off immediately by 1.3 billion. If you take that 7 billion and use an economic benefit of their claimed 6.12 billion, and you get a actually net loss of $880 million on the project. Now, keep in mind, this is based on $7 billion. Any major capital cost project has cost overruns over the years, so which I'll explain later. This job creation also is exaggerated. There's a false comparison to business as usual. What this report generally doesn't take into account is the fact that there could be other better energy storage projects to replace it. There we go. And they talk about in the CanSIA report about total net benefits, economic contributions. They're defined in the report. They're defined very broadly and include assumed benefits, well beyond the direct influence of the project. And the social value benefits attempt to monetarily quantify the project's impact on the well-beings of Ontario. But a lot of this is based on, exaggerated job reports in this report, which I'll explain later as well too. And the compared to business as usual, that's not a fair analysis at all. It should be compared to alternative energy storage solutions. So what the net value contributions of the proposed project are compared to business as usual. That means not having any alternative energy storage projects. And if this project does not go forward, there would be other energy storage projects to take their place. The IESO currently, I believe, has 15 battery storage, energy storage projects approved. And 9 of them actually have in 50% or 51% indigenous participation in them. So TC Energy's claim or suggestion that they'll have indigenous participation, really isn't unusual. Okay. And another thing is TC Energy submitted this project to the province as an unsolicited bid. And it has not gone through the IESO LT RFP process, competitive process. So at the moment, it's basically, a non-competitive project. So, and the IESO has twice rejected the proposed project based on the lack of value to Ontarians relative to other energy storage options. Other energy storage options may prove to be more valuable than TC Energy's unsolicited proposal. Go to the next slide. Here we are. Sorry. I have to skip a few here. There we go. Okay. Now, this is another thing about this report. It has misleading job numbers. What they talk about are people years in jobs. And people years are not jobs. I need to stress this. They don't mean jobs directly. A people year is roughly one person in 2,080 hours. So it's one person working full-time for a year. Okay, so what they've been doing to get these people years is multiplying that by 50 years. So basically, you'd have to get real actual jobs, you would have to divide those claimed people years by 50, and which I'll explain in the next slide. Okay. So if you divide all these numbers down here, you can see here, if you look at the outline section there, and in the top graph there, with the top list there, image. Geez, it's hard to read, isn't it? I think, is it 41,200? That's people years. If you divide that by 50 years, you get a total of 825 jobs, actual jobs. Okay, and the next one is the 37,000 people years. Okay, that gives you is that what do we got there? Oh geez, I can't even read this myself here. Anyway, if you divide 37,000 people years by 50, that gives you 740 jobs, or sorry, what's that give you? Anyway, geez, this is so small, I can't even read. Can that be expanded a little more? Is it above there? Yeah. No, maybe it's the next slide up. Next slide up, I guess. Okay, anyway. Anyway, it comes, if you do that, if you divide by 50, it comes to 740 jobs total in Ontario. Okay. And 180 jobs in Grey Bruce, Simcoe area. Okay. I mean, all you have to do is, it's not amazing math. All you have to do is just take those figures, outline figures, and highlighted figures, and divide them by 50. Well, I guess you put it back to the regular size. Sorry, that's what you're getting from down there. The image below that, you get the 740 jobs in Ontario. Here we go. Okay. Next slide there. Okay, and as Councillor Greenfield was asking, there's these utility sector benefits and all the industries here. Okay, once again, CanSIA compares the project impact on the utility sector to a business as usual scenario. This means it's not compared to any other alternative energy storage project. And of course, without an open competitive RFP process, we won't know how it would compare to other proposals. Okay. Here's another misleading thing, comparison to a battery energy storage system, BESSes. They don't explain what assumptions they made in their example for a BESS, their typical BESS they're using. From my calculations that I've done, BESSes, from a capital cost, the equivalent BESS to this pump storage project would be approximately half the cost of the $7 billion of this project. Okay. And the BESSes have more flexibility and reliability. Their maintenance costs as well over 20 years are a lot less. Okay. Okay. So just to encapsulate here, they fail to acknowledge CanSIA that long duration battery parks fare better than TC Energy's open loop pump storage proposal. In these ways, speed of implementation, environmental impact, efficiency. If you want to do an efficiency comparison, this is outlined here down below on the left side. Okay. This pump storage project over 50 years will waste 8,590,750 megawatts. A BESS facility of the same size, same capacity, would waste 111 megawatts per day and 2,000,025. So basically a quarter of the wasted energy of this pump storage project from a battery energy storage project. Okay, and this is based on 68% efficiency of the pump storage versus about 90% efficiency of battery energy storage. Okay. As a matter of fact, TC Energy and, the TC Energy has a new battery energy storage project that's been built in Saddlebrook, Alberta. And that's one of the new technology batteries, which is a flow battery technology they're using. So there's many other new battery technologies. Lithium ion for this type of battery energy storage is probably on the way out, actually. There's LFP, lithium ferrite phosphate batteries. There's sodium ion, there's liquid metal batteries, redox flow batteries. There's a whole range of them coming out, emerging. Okay. So basically to conclude, the the Cancia report was purchased by TC Energy to influence project decision makers. By overwhelming readers and complex numbers and jargon, Cancia creates an illusion of credibility, making it hard to critically assess the findings. And the important thing too is this is not a great job for Ontario taxpayers and ratepayers. This is not a great project. This project will cost Ontario taxpayers far more than it will deliver while creating very few meaningful jobs. Sorry. Just to talk about quickly about cost overruns on these big capital projects. The Australian Snowy 2.0 pump storage project, in 2017, it was touted as costing capital cost, projected cost of $2 billion. In 2024, that projected cost rose to $12 billion. TC Energy's own Pacific Coastal Gas Link project, pipeline project, and that's their business. They have no experience in pump storage. In 2018, the capital cost, projected cost was $6.6 billion. Now in 2024, last year, it has risen to $14.5 billion. So this is not unusual for capital cost projects. If you take to use TC Energy, the TC Energy pump storage project as an example, in 2020, it was after improvements were made. It was the projected cost was $4.5 billion, and as of last year, it was $7 billion, capped at $7 billion, which the taxpayers will be paying for, Ontario taxpayers. So if you extrapolate those numbers, and it rises at $625 million per year, the capital cost. If you extrapolate that to probably the operation date of 2034, it comes to a capital cost of $13.25 billion. So bear that in mind. And sure, they might say, TC Energy might say that yes, we'll use private money, but the banks, financial institutions to make up the difference. But who's going to pay for the carrying costs on those loans? Who? You, I, the Ontario taxpayers and ratepayers will be paying that. So bear that in mind as well, too. Anyway, to conclude, economically, basically, this project is bad for Ontarians and great for TC Energy. Okay, so thank you very much. I appreciate your time,
Thanks,
and I
Mike.
hope I haven't gone over.
Thank you. Any questions for Mike? Yep. Oh,
Mike, I assume that TC Energy was mandated to go out and get a study done and they were expected to pay for it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So really, no matter who they hired, it's gonna be tainted in the opinion because they're paying for it. Like, I guess.
Well, actually, I'm sorry, but actually, this study, I don't know if it'll come out of the $285 million of pre-development costs. I don't know that.
Yeah. But
That's
I guess
possible.
what I'm saying, should it have not maybe been the province asking for somebody to do this report rather than TC Energy?
Well, from what I understand, previously, the former Minister of Energy, Todd Smith, requested a report from IESO. And apparently that never came. And I guess it seems TC Energy took this upon themselves to come out with this report.
Well, it wasn't mandated that they had to do it in your.
In my
understanding.
opinion.
Yeah.
I don't-
Okay, and I don't know your background, but you've done a lot of work and.
My background actually is power generation. So,
Okay, well, so you were saying other there are other solutions that are, can you
there's
expand on
gravity
that?
storage as well too. Yeah, there's all kinds of things.
Like battery storage? What other?
The gravity energy storage, that's another technology emerging. They're experimenting with that in China right now, actually.
What is gravity?
Basically, it's kind of like a solid pump storage. It doesn't use water though. They lift huge weights up, use the excess energy to lift up huge weights, and then slowly drop them. And of course that operates generators to create electricity. So,
Thank you.
okay.
If I understand you correctly, you said that TC Energy is building currently a battery-based project.
It is. It's a backup for a solar energy plant.
Okay, so there is no direct comparison possible between a pumped storage project and their battery-based energy project. Is that correct?
Oh, you mean, oh, sure, there could be a comparison, sure. This is a smaller scale one,
Okay.
but I think it's is it 80 megawatts? I can't remember, something like that. Yeah.
It would be interesting to find out what the actual comparison is between a project which is currently developed based on battery storage as opposed to pumped storage, and who would be better knowledgeable than TC Energy if they're already building one.
Well, it doesn't mean they're that knowledgeable.
So I guess they don't know what they are doing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I probably pump storage, I'm wondering, but I don't know about battery storage. This is probably their first endeavor in battery storage probably as well too. So
Well, it should be possible to make a comparison then between what they're building there as opposed to what they're building here or planning on building here.
oh, sure.
And it can be scaled probably
Yeah, you
accordingly.
can scale it up. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
So that would be something I would really be interested in
Oh,
hearing.
yeah, yeah. Or multiple plants. Another thing that's been circulated around, which is false, is a 4-hour limit on batteries duration. That's a fallacy. That's, and they're, in Australia, they're currently building an 8-hour duration battery storage plant. It's not about the batteries, it's all about capacity, megawatt hours. That's your capacity. This pump storage plant has a capacity of 8,000 megawatt hours. This is another thing. They've been talking about, producing 1,000 watts. It's basic math. The output level's 1,000 watts. The capacity is 8,000 megawatt hours. So the maximum it can generate at 1,000 megawatts, you do the math, it's 8 hours maximum. So this claim of 11 hours, up to 11 hours, you could do it for 11 hours, but you'd have to derate it to about, I think, 730 megawatts, the output, to get those 11 hours. So that's a bit misleading too.
I think Adam has a question for you next.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Okay.
I have just two quick questions for you. One, who in your opinion would be considered an independent auditor of this report? Like who would be that auditor? And who do you think should be responsible for paying for that independent audit?
An auditor that has no association with TC Energy, I guess, yeah.
Like a specific organization or a private?
Oh, no, it'd be like a respected research firm, yeah.
Do you have any suggestions?
At the moment, I don't.
Okay. And in the case of this, who should pay for it to keep it independent?
Well, shouldn't be TC Energy, put it that way. It should be, I guess, a government paid.
So our
Research.
municipality, I believe, has an agreement that any studies that we do, TC Energy has agreed to pay for those studies. So in essence, if Meaford asked for a study, TC Energy
If it
would,
was paid by TC Energy, how could it be assumed to be unbiased? If it was
so
paid for in,
so would anything that the municipality ask for then be biased for TCE?
well, if they hired on their own an independent research contractor, that's a different story. And paid for it.
So the municipality would have to pay for it to be considered independent by your definition.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Okay.
I would say that.
One other quick question here, and I mean, I love math, so I love the math that you
No,
gave
okay.
me. When you spoke about the 41,000 jobs at 2080 hours, you mentioned that's full-time hours.
That's right.
I think we're all wishing that everybody here gets full-time hours at any job that they get to, but the world of part-time also exists. So in essence, if this is at 2080 full-time hours, could these numbers actually be higher because of part-time jobs? Because
Oh, no, people hours does include temporary part-time jobs.
but if this
it's the-
$41,000 is 50
it's
years
the-
at 2080 hours, if somebody had less than 28 hours, wouldn't that create two jobs to get to that 2080 hours?
Well, yeah, it'd be two people working part-time, yeah. Say if it.
So would that create more jobs?
Working, say, 4 hours a day or whatever, yeah.
So
Yeah.
like,
But these are people hours. This is not, 41,000, that's people hours over 50 years.
so
and,
the job numbers that it
yeah.
could create could actually be higher than
Yeah.
41,000.
Job numbers?
Yeah, like the number of jobs created.
No, like you're getting confused. This is people hours. It's not jobs.
Okay,
Yeah. So he's, what was he saying? He was, Mr. Stiff there. Here, I'll just check. I think, yeah, he, his actual quote was 41,000 years of employment not jobs. That's people years.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that
Over
the number
50
of, the number of actual jobs created could be higher than that.
Well, if there are people, I guess, working an hour a day or something.
Well, two people working half shifts.
Oh, yeah, sure. You could create, if you had people working an hour a day, people hours, you could have eight people.
So that's all I'm asking is that
Yeah,
at 41,000 jobs or people hours to
Yeah.
create 41,000 full-time jobs.
but you have to keep in mind, this project, over the 4 years, they're saying 1,700 jobs. It started at 800 jobs. Now it's 1,700. I don't know why it's increased over the years, their estimate, but anyway, these 1,700 jobs are strictly, for the period of construction. And those jobs are, a lot of them are temporary. And these jobs are not happening at the same time over the full 4 years of construction. And when when construction's finished and operations start, it's 32 claimed full-time jobs. And of course, I have to admit, I was in the industry. I know over, say, 20 years or 50 years, especially with the pump storage and the electrical equipment, there's a lot of, maintenance and refurbishment too. So, there's temporary jobs created there, skilled jobs, but they won't be local jobs. I'm sorry to say that. They'll be highly skilled crews from elsewhere doing that kind of work. They won't be like full-time people here. So, a lot of the dams up north are remotely controlled. For all I know, this whole pump storage project could be controlled from an office in Toronto by 32 people. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions for Mike?
Oh, I just wanted to mention that this, you asked a question, Ginny, about the equipment. It's been my experience with power generation that most of this, large equipment, electrical equipment, is actually made offshore.
Yeah, and I've
It's
heard one in Quebec,
it's
but I
it's
haven't heard any in Ontario.
yeah, it's usually a huge supplier would be a huge company like Siemens from Germany.
I think
so-
Siemens has something out of Quebec, do they not? It was something in Montreal.
I don't know if it's, is there a plant there or is it a distributor?
When I worked for another company that did that type of work, there was something in Montreal that they had, but yeah, but most of it, you're right, is offshore. a lot of it's Taiwan, Singapore, that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like, you've got the turbines, the generators, the switch gear, all that stuff, transmission lines, transformers, they're most of that stuff will probably be offshore.
Yeah.
So I have to question their claims on made in Ontario
Right.
percentages. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Appreciate
Okay.
your presentation.
All right, thanks.
All right. So we're on to communications, is that right?
Committee inquiries are next.
Committee inquiries. Okay, so can you facilitate that piece? I'm not sure what.
So, and committee inquiries are just if anyone has anything that they would like to address right now or speak to, it should go around the table and see
Okay,
if
just general, not
Just
necessarily
general,
to the speak. Okay,
nothing.
perfect. All right, open up the floor. Anybody want to chime in? Go ahead, Adam.
And this to me is a bigger discussion, but we are now a year into this committee. And two of our major outlines within our terms and purpose is 3A, develop a plan, and 3C, develop a plan to regularly review its activities and evaluate the effectiveness of its initiatives. We don't have a plan. We don't have anything to measure that plan, and we're a year into this. I think we've got some administrative work to do. I thoroughly love the information and things like that, and getting all this information I think could help us with this plan, but it's not as fun. But we have some administrative work to do as a group, and I think that's what the next couple meetings need to be focused on, is where this committee is headed and what we are going to do to make sure that we are representing the community properly.
I agree. And I think we also need to get the support that we were initially told about, which I don't think to this day we've really got. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, originally, during our interview for the pump storage, if I'm not mistaken, there was a consultant present as part of that selection process. It was my understanding that the committee would have access to these consultants to help us do exactly what Adam has just explained, to formulate a plan, to help us formulate a plan, to coach us what this plan might be, also to coach us in these meetings as far as the proper way to approach some things, because this is not something we do every day, and to be a resource for information. For instance, we just heard a report that says, well, there's this many jobs, but then when it boils down to actually jobs in this town or this township, wherever we're going to be, it's pretty vague. I think I agree with Shirley. We need one done for Meaford, but this would be helpful to have this person. And I was just wondering, I'll ask the councillors here and the deputy mayor, where do we stand on this? Because it's my understanding that they were supposed to be a resource, which would help us accomplish what Adam has said.
Go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may take that, and thank you, Member Baranski, for bringing that forward. And you're absolutely right. That was a discussion that occurred when we interviewed candidates for this committee. And there was present a member of Ainley and Associates who was engaged with the municipality at that point in time. And so things changed as a new CAO came in, and as a pause occurred, as TC focused on provincial matters and getting the funding that is now in place. And anyway, a lot of things changed, and that particular CAO is no longer with us, and Ainley and Associates is also on hold for this at this particular time. We will have a new CAO joining us in the next few weeks, and I'm very much looking forward to getting that individual up to speed on the work of this committee and getting all the right people back into play. We're lucky to have Sarah Mahan with us tonight, and Sue, that's great. Kirsten unfortunately is unable to be with us, and this is her role to be the CAO liaison. So yeah, we're missing some pieces, and I'm fully aware of that, and I fully expect and anticipate that if we're lucky, as soon as the next meeting, we may see a new staff face at the table. So hopefully that's the case, and we can start to undertake the meaningful work that this committee is designed to do. I know Adam has mentioned the creation of a plan, and we haven't met since November. So there's some work that I think perhaps we feel as a group we're a little bit behind on. So I think I'd suggest, Adam, if you're able to come to the next agenda setting meeting and talk about your vision for a plan, and we can see about getting that on the agenda. But yeah, things are starting to move now that the funding is in place from the province, and we're all anxious around the council table, and I think everybody in the community is, to kind of understand, what's next? What should we anticipate, and when, and who's coming, and what does this all look like? And we need to know that so that we can be prepared. So yeah, we've got a lot of work ahead of us, as well as discussion on a community benefit agreement. And that's also to be part of the mandate of this group, is to be involved in those discussions. So it's not here on the agenda, but I don't know, maybe Sue can pull it up. Yeah, I did bring a motion to the council meeting this past Monday that spoke to the creation of a bylaw, the direction to staff to prepare a bylaw that will outline some factors in relation to community engagement and what that looks like, as well as how we will gather and assimilate information as it comes to us through the IA process and however else we receive information. So we'll have that bylaw. I'm not sure when, but staff are working on it. So as soon as they're able to prepare it, it may be a few weeks. And I think that should come to this group for comment as well, because we all need to be, on the same page and all with the same level of knowledge as to how, as a municipality, we're approaching the next steps that are going to be occurring this year. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do.
Will that said bylaw be addressing noise and water and all that sort of thing, or?
Not this particular bylaw. We do have, some bylaws in place regarding that, but they may need to be revisited. So that's certainly a discussion that I know we'll have at the council table at some point, and a recommendation from this group to do this work would be certainly appreciated and helpful. If this group wanted to provide that direction to council to review those bylaws, we can certainly do that.
Okay, so an email can be sent to Kirsten to move forward on that, or to council?
Recommendation, it would need to come as a motion from this particular committee that a motion would need to be made that you would like council to address or revisit the bylaws in relation to noise and air quality and so on. And yeah, so someone here would need to make that notice of motion, and a motion would need to be prepared, which Sue, I'm sure, could help us with.
Can we
And-
make it now to get things rolling, or
Mhm.
how does that work? I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so if anyone, typically the chair doesn't bring a motion, but if anybody was willing to do that.
Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce a motion that, I'm just gonna back up a second. So this is not a motion. If I'm not mistaken, can I address you as Shirley? Is that okay? If I'm not mistaken, during the election time, it was discussed, from some candidates that is something that Meaford needs to put in place, which was, number one, to look at all of these, what are we going to call them? Development rules and laws. In other words, to have on the books bylaws to do with noise, traffic, light pollution, all of the things, water quality. And I guess this is addressed at this point. From what I hear, that hasn't been addressed as of yet. Is that correct?
No, not fulsomely, no.
Okay, all right, okay. I just wanted to clarify that
Mm.
because I know I've missed the last few meetings from one reason or another at this point. So thank you very much. Now I will make a motion though. I would motion that, the Pump Storage Advisory Committee ask council, to review all their bylaws concerning the, projects like TC Energy or any project, as far as the bylaws of the municipality on noise, light pollution, water, traffic. I believe this is where we would need some help with this to broaden it out, but that's the generalities of it, to review these bylaws. And I'll be missing some things that need to be reviewed, but I believe we would need a hand with that.
And if I may, Chair, I'm just conferring with Sue here. In the agenda as it's presented, we don't have a section that says notice of motion, but I think Sue may help us through the legalities of that, if we can add that. And what Bob has just has just described, if everyone is in agreement, can be that notice of motion, and then staff with Bob's assistance will prepare language for that actual motion, which will appear on our next agenda. We can discuss that and agree to it with any amendments if needed, and then communicate that to council. And then that will come as a direction from this group to council, which is exactly what this group is designed to do, is to provide recommendations to council.
Okay. Very good.
Would it be helpful
to also include that we establish baselines on present conditions immediately. So we don't lose this moment in time before anything starts. If you're going to see how things change, you have to know how they were in the beginning. So I would just add to the motion that there be an immediate establishment of baselines of water quality, air quality, sound, that type of things. I would think that would be a pretty logical starting point.
And if I may, Madam Chair, and I certainly can't speak for TC Energy, from conversations I've had over the years, my understanding is they've been doing work on water quality. And have they done work on air quality and noise? I don't know, but we could certainly add that language into the motion and make that, that request.
If I can say, I would like, I can't make the motion, but I think it's fair to the community that it be through the town and not through TC Energy. I think we need our own studies, and this is something that this town should be managing, when we shouldn't be getting our results from TC Energy. This is something that this town should have baselines. We shouldn't be relying on their tests and their baselines. I think this is something that should be run through municipality, and especially if there's federal funding out there, this is something that those funds or the municipality could easily do. Like public health has free water testing or whatever, right? So using our resources that we have at hand.
And if I may, Madam
Yeah.
Chair, just speak a little bit to the way the funding works. There is an agreement with TC Energy that they will cost recover reasonable expenses from the municipality. So it doesn't mean that, typically they can say you can do this or you can do that, but they certainly want to be consulted, and we could choose our own, consultant to do the work as long as they were aware of what we were doing and they agreed to the reason behind why we wanted to do these studies, then we would be compensated. So we'll have to have some discussion about that at the council level, because if there's going to be a budgetary impact to the municipality for undertaking these studies, if, in your minds to keep them fully independent, then that's a budget discussion. We don't have budget to do anything of this nature. So I'm looking at Harley here, we'll need to give some consideration as to how we might proceed with a study of this nature, because, consultants and engineers would have to be hired potentially. So if the group felt that that wasn't an expense that you'd like to see go back to TC Energy, then we have to figure out how that's going to get paid for.
Okay, I think my thoughts on the matter are great. If there's a study that we can do, fine, but there's also resources at our fingertips, like public health. Like that's something that we wouldn't need a budget for, that you could proceed on getting your baseline. So I don't know how do we proceed to next step of that? Because I think Bob's point is excellent, that we should get on the baselines ASAP.
And if I may, so my suggestion would be, we've got the notice of motion in place today. So we've got a month before the next meeting. So as staff assist in the language for the actual motion, some legwork would need to be done internally to understand the costs, what that might look like, what we can achieve that, without cost, and what the costs would be. And I think those costs probably should be included in the motion if we have those available to us at that time.
So in layman's terms, it's next meeting that you're saying that we can move forward on that?
Yeah, today, if we consider Bob's request a notice of motion, then the actual motion would be outlined in our next agenda. We
Okay.
can discuss that and amend it if we so choose, and approve it or not approve it, and then send that as a recommendation to council.
Okay, so does Bob have to say I make a motion? Just we're clear? No, we're good? Okay,
Did Sue, were you able to?
I know the show. I'm talking about Bob Peel.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Bob Peel, sorry.
So I just want to make sure that Sue was able to capture, or do you need? Okay, are you comfortable doing that, or do you want Bob to repeat what he said?
I'll watch it later.
Okay.
Bob Peel to see, okay. I'm talking about I'm talking about Bob Peel and baseline. I didn't know if he has to put up his hand and say, I request a baseline motion or something. No.
Okay, let me see how I can navigate this. So
I do need a seconder for that motion before,
You don't, not for a notice of motion.
no?
So the thought process, if I'm following this through, is that we need a motion that gives the local municipality the policing ability to monitor the project. We had established a baseline in all the various things that matter here, the air quality, the water quality, the noise, probably captured at several points within the community so that we, it's comprehensive and sufficient. And then I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel here. We just simply need to have a process in place because there's government standards already for air quality and government standards for water, but we need to have the local data captured.
Somebody recording it.
Somebody recording it and directed by the municipality, because just in the relationship, various entities will keep the construction project within the parameters that we consider acceptable. So, the self-policing is perhaps not acceptable to the community. TC managing their own project, what I'm hearing around is simply, it should be third party. It should be independent. It should be measured against the baseline so that we know when the needle moves.
Absolutely. Every resident should have access to what the outcomes are of the baselines.
Yes,
Like,
and
public
then
knowledge.
the probably has a, further point to this, there needs to be a hotline that people can call or email or some such and say, it sounds really loud today. Is anybody watching this? I saw a cloud of dust today. Is that being captured? I mean, all the different parameters. So we need to, work through what does it look like in its simplest form as a motion? And then, what does it look like practically to monitor it through the lifespan of the project? And especially during the construction.
Good point. Any more? Go ahead.
So if I understand right, I think we're asking for two motions to be brought to us. One representing Bob Baranski's and one representing Bob Peel's.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm actually looking at mine just saying it's a part of Bob Baranski's.
Oh, an all-encompassing
It's simply.
bylaw
it's
and
start- it's-
baseline combined?
It's the starting point, establish the baseline.
But his is
Then
bylaws.
establish the
Yeah.
process
Okay.
by which you monitor any variance from the baseline.
Okay.
Then you establish penalties, remediation. That sounds reasonable.
Okay. Thank you. That's good. I think we're all clear on that piece of it. Go ahead, Adam.
If we're making notice as a motion, I would like a notice of motion for next meeting, that this committee direct council and staff to look into why we cannot have a hybrid style meeting. We just listened to a present. That's okay. Never mind then. I withdraw.
Go ahead, Harley.
Thanks, Lady Chair. I'd just like to ask the other committee members, up until 6 months ago, or approximately 6 months ago, IESO, Independent Electrical Systems Operators, were a major player in this game. And for the last 6 months, they seem to have disappeared. Now, I realize our province has been very generous to TC and granted them a substantial amount of money to do some environmental impact studies. So I'm not sure if that has taken IESO completely out of the picture. Way back at the outset of this committee, that was one group I wanted to hear from, and it just never happened. So I don't know if I can throw it out to the other committee members. Is it any advantage to having them come and explaining, because they did have some concerns with this project, and to me, it would be great. I don't think this is a done deal yet, but, I just wondered if anybody else is interested in still hearing from them.
Can we maybe make a request that they come as a guest? Is that a possibility to speak?
Yeah, that's what I was originally hoping for, is that they would come and present to us and concerning the project.
Can we put that forth with our agenda for?
I'll,
next meeting?
I'll, let Kristen know.
Okay, great. Do we know how the 285 million is gonna be split? Is that something our committee will have access to? Where those funds are going?
Madam Chair, all I know about that is that the funds will be going into the environmental assessment processes. And TC Energy will also have to do a financial feasibility study. That might not be the correct terminology, but they need to do a study to take back to the province to prove that the project is financially feasible and what the cost will be to build. They need to justify the cost to build.
Okay. That's good. Do we know is there a timeline over that?
If there is, I'm not certain of that. And also within those funds, community benefits for us here in Meaford. So those discussions have not yet begun, but all we've said is we've got the motion in place now for staff to do the bylaw with regards to the public engagement side of that, for one thing. And I think as those processes begin, we need to have conversations at this table as to how we're going to be involved in those. And we have no idea what it's going to look like with these surveys and town halls and charrettes and who knows what. So yeah, we need to keep this committee involved in that.
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead, Ron.
I'm one other question still, and I might have missed it. So is there funding in place for a consultant that would be available to help us or not at this point? Not at this time?
I'm gonna say yes to that. You know, everybody knows that we were utilizing Ainley and Associates and they've just been on pause for the time being, but they are available to us. And then we will need to have discussion about what that work might be and make sure that it's deemed reasonable by TC Energy so that we can recover those costs.
It would seem that, you know, at the next meeting, if we are trying to come forward with an actual, you know, recommendations to council, which is our purpose and which you're going to take seriously and spend time on, it would be great to have some help in wording a bylaw like this, right? That might be helpful to say what we should be testing for instance, because, Madam Chair, I understand that, you know, there's the public health for drinking water standards, but there's many nasties in that base beside me that aren't covered by drinking standards. You know, I mean, it's 85 years of everything that any human being can think of to kill people has been used up there. So that would be nice to have that little bit of expertise to maybe, you know, guide us in the right direction if it's possible. I'm not asking for the impossible. We all have to work within the rules of what we're given, right?
Absolutely, Bob. And if I may, Madam Chair, we do have access to legal counsel if it was felt necessary that we have, you know, those additional eyes on the motion.
I guess this is a question to the entire committee that kind of comes from one of my questions to Save the Georgian Bay. If we request something as a committee, if we see the municipality request something through us, and we are the drivers of it, we are the ones requesting it, but it is cost recovered from TCE. So TCE in essence pays for it. I myself still thinks that it is an unbiased thing, that we requested it, that it was us here that asked for it. Even though TCE at the end of the day might be footing the bill for it, I just would like to kind of get the temperature of the room to make sure that we as a group are okay with doing this, or we're going to have the discussion each time of how is what our request going to do impact the budget? So I guess that's just a question to the entire group. I myself feel comfortable if we are the ones driving the request,
Are
but
are you insinuating that we get to pick the provider as well?
yes.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole point of us driving it. Yes, I guess TCE might have a veto power if we, you know, go too far outside of a boundary, which that's going to have to be something we as a committee understand. But absolutely, that's the whole point is we get to pick it. But if at the end of the day it is paid for by TCE, I think I'm just looking for an opinion around the room because that's kind of what my question was during the presentation that I think I got a bit of different answer than what I was expecting. So I'm just looking for an opinion around the room.
My opinion is yes, so start there, like they're welcome, as long as this committee gets to pick that provider and it communicates directly with that provider, I'm a yes. Go ahead.
I definitely agree. I feel as long as we're the main drivers of it, then that keeps it unbiased. Because as far as I know, the clause of them it sounds more like it's a reimbursement, if that's correct. If they have nothing that says this has to be pro them or like in their favor, then there's no reason that they can't reimburse any data that we get back. And as long as we're the main communicators, we remain the client, I guess you could say in a sense. So I don't know why whoever we're bringing in would be biased towards TC, even if they're the financial force behind it, because we're still kind of the employer. So I think it should remain unbiased if we take that route.
Shirley?
Madam Chair, yes, Lindy's absolutely right. But I think the key is, whatever the relationship is between this committee and TC Energy, we need to have communication with them. They need to be aware that this is a piece of work that we feel is really important. Because, they don't need to be part of what we're doing or involved in who we hire to do it, but they just need to understand that, we feel it's necessary to do this piece of work. Because if we do it and then go to them afterwards, that's going to be a problem guaranteed. We need to include them in the communication as we go forward.
I guess I'd like to understand if they're getting the money from the government, 285 million. Are they the go-through for these funds, or is it a direct, could we pull direct from provincial funding? Like go to
No.
Ford on this? Like, I'm not sure how that fund's working.
Yeah, and I don't have the specifics of that either, Chair, but I know that, TC Energy has to justify their expenses to the province. Any ministry that you're working with, they'll give you an allotment of money, but you've got to have you've got to have that breakdown of how those funds were spent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can I let Mr. Little take he had put up his hand when we asked for the timeline of when those funds could be used. Are you able to answer? Did you still want to answer that? Well, I'll give you 1 minute because we're just wrapping up. I'll give you 1 minute to answer that question and not go off topic, but to answer pointedly that question. 3 years. Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
So Adam, to speak to your question about this, and to be fair to save George and B, I think that I'm in agreement that if council or ourselves pick a third party and it's refunded to us by TC Energy, there's no issue with that. I think what Mike was trying to make a point about was that on CanSIA's website, their website states, CanSIA says that they help clients set goals for research outcomes and develop a detailed plan of how to make the case. That's not the kind of consultant I want, okay?
And just my exchange with Mike, I was just trying to make sure that we as a group were making sure that the community knew that our work is as unbiased as we could make it, regardless of who is paying for it at the end of the day, because I think our ability to do anything with TCE's purse at the end of the day is probably going to be a lot bigger than the municipality's budget. So even that, yes, at the end of the day, TCE might be paying for it, but I just wanted the kind of the temperature from the group to understand, or what they understood as to what our bias was, regardless of who's paying for it. And I certainly you know, who, I don't deal with the money. We just make the requests, and who pays for it on the other end? That's not our concern.
I think now is the time for us to do it while that 285 million of our money is being spent. So I think we have to remember that it's our money that, so I don't think it's out of, this is the time for us to ask for those studies, really. So not at a later date. Anyways, okay. Is it any other questions before we wrap up? I know it's almost 7, so. Any other? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, in the communications, there was in one of the letters, there was a request about having name cards.
Having name cards?
Yeah.
Oh,
so people-
that,
And I'm
Wouldn't it be
sorry,
fun?
ladies,
Yeah.
but I've finally figured out that I've got Sue and Sarah. You know, I'm not in and out of the town hall, but for those watching,
right.
and I assume, Sarah, you're filling in the CAO's position at this point.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I am
You're
solely
free.
just holding the seat down.
You're
I
spread pretty
filled that
thin.
seat. Yeah. Thank you.
No, but I wondered if that wouldn't be
Absolutely, it'd be
Like
great,
I-
because I think even us, we don't associate outside of this meeting, so even having it on the tip of your tongue, it's tricky sometimes when, I agree, I think that'd be great for next meeting. Can we
And-
put
and
that
at-
into?
at
play?
one time we did have cards because when you came, there was a card and you went and sat at that seat.
Right.
But just, so everybody else knows who they're dealing with.
Absolutely, I think we should make that happen. I don't know how that, we pass a motion. I don't know how that works. Can we put that in the notes, please? Name cards, thank you. All right, can we call this adjourned? Can we? No? April 10th?
That's the next
Oh,
meeting.
the planning, so it's when Doug and Howard meet?
I don't see a meeting in the calendar, so I'll have to ask Kirsten.
Oh,
As I would put my name up for the next planning meeting was all, and I'm wondering when it
Okay.
is.
all right, we'll make note of that as well. Perfect. All right. Oh, one more.
One more thing, you can hold on here. So if I need coaching on this motion, do I need to be part of the planning meeting or are you just gonna do it?
We'll look after it.
All right, there you go. Perfect, thanks.
All right, I think that was a productive meeting. I feel like we're getting somewhere. Yay, meeting adjourned. Okay, thanks all.